I've never taught this before, but it was only recently that I realized that when I do a track stand, I'm adding in one extra element. It helps me adjust my position on the bike and makes a huge difference in my overall balance and control on two wheels. Today we're going to learn how to add in that element, which is going to take your track stands to the next level. My name is Aaron, welcome to Super Rider. On this channel, we break down complex bike skills into easy to learn techniques so you can quickly apply it to your riding. See if you can pick out what I'm doing in this track stand technique that looks slightly different than the normal way to do it. See how I'm adjusting myself on the bike by lifting off the front and back wheels to reset my stance? This might seem subtle, but it makes a huge difference on the bike and will take your control to a whole new level. Not just for balancing either. Today we're going to learn to lift and move your wheels around from a static position. Now normally we'd be using these techniques to adjust our position on the trail, but since it's raining like crazy in Portland, we're going to work on it inside. This will completely isolate the technique, which should help you learn it faster. But just understand that we can absolutely use this on the trail to put our wheels where we want them to go. Let's start by breaking this down to the basics. When I lift my front wheel or my back wheel, I'm doing a technique called rocking. Rocking is this back and forth motion that we do where we lift the front wheel, then rock forward to lift the back. Eventually you'll get good enough to be able to lift each wheel independently, and that's where we'll plug it into our track stands. To get started rocking, ride slow and grab your front brake. Lean forward slightly, and this should bring your back wheel off the ground. As the back wheel comes down, grab your back brake and lean back. This should unweight the front wheel and lift it off the ground slightly. Practice going back and forth like this, just shifting your weight forward and back. It's challenging to get the timing at first, but just try to do one or two rocking motions and then work up from there. Are you getting a good feel for the way our body position on the bike helps lift the wheels off the ground? Let's try to isolate the movement for each wheel, starting with the front wheel. Ride slow to a stop and hold your back brake to keep the bike in place. Now lean back on the bike and bring the front wheel up. Try to do a couple front wheel lifts. You might notice that you can use each one of the front wheel lifts to help balance yourself on the bike. If you're tipping to one side or the other, you can put the front wheel in the right place to counter your balance. At this point, we can keep advancing our skill by practicing the pendulum drill. Find a line or a small obstacle and lift your front wheel over and back of the line as many times as you can. If you're struggling to get the front wheel off the ground, it's likely because your body weight is too far forward on the bike. Make sure your hips are behind the bottom bracket area, that way your body isn't weighing down the front of the bike. That's the mistake most people make when they're struggling with the front wheel lift. Okay, let's get rolling with the back wheel. This one can be tricky to isolate, but thankfully there's a special technique that we can use to help us out. It's called the pedal scoop, and it's a motion that scoops the pedal and the back wheel into the air. Tip your feet forward so that your toes are pointed at the ground. This causes the pedal to grip your shoe in a more substantial way. Then with your feet pointed down, push back and up on the pedals. This will cause the pedals to stick to your feet like glue, and it'll bring your back wheel into the air. Try this movement rolling first, and when you feel like you've got it, grab your front brake and see how many times you can lift your back wheel up into the air. A lot of people start this back wheel movement with both brakes on, but the best part about having your back wheel in the air is being able to adjust your pedal position. If you feel comfortable, release your back brake when the back wheel is in the air, and you can tweak your pedals to a more comfortable spot. This is a huge help when we need to reset on the bike. If you want to progress this skill, try to do the pendulum with your back wheel as well. If that's a bit much, just see how many times you can lift off the ground in a row. It's a fun game to play to count how many times you can lift that wheel off the ground, and it'll help you progress quickly. Moving on, we did the original rocking with a little help from an endo, but the true test to see if you isolated these wheel lifts properly is to do the whole thing from a standstill. Ride slow to a stop, and instead of doing an endo, try to lift your front wheel first to get that rocking motion started. Now that we have the rocking technique completely mastered, let's drop it into the track stand technique, and I'll show you how it all fits together. Also, if you haven't learned track stands yet, I'll put a link down below for one of my tutorials. Let's jump into a track stand and get your back and forth motion going. See how your pedals can sometimes creep up on you and put you in a funky position like this? A quick rock forward to lift that back wheel, and I can kick the pedals back into the position that I want them to be. And just like that, we're back in business. Maybe I got a little too spicy with my position on the bike and I need to adjust where the front wheel is. Easy fix, just rock back and put that wheel where it needs to be. You can force this movement on the bike if you want to practice it a little bit more too. Try to go from track stand to a back and forth rock and then back into the track stand. Or throw in an ET for fun. There's all kinds of stuff you can do now that you have full control of your wheels. The next thing you can do is start using your wheels to pivot the bike. Check out this video right here and you'll see exactly what I mean.